The movie projects I wish I made back then and up till now, but no, just no. That's why today's podcast is regarding in subject of what I have in store, or what I had in store back before you guys even knew me and discovered what I'm like as a filmmaker. You guys can go out and say I suck as a filmmaker all you want, but here's some proof. Hello everybody, Anthony Mars Jr. on PR, Lost Galaxy 2014, with a brand new Terra Venture podcast for the audience and here on Terra Venture as a whole. Bring you guys podcast episode 134, a podcast that I have already written and jotted down in today's subject, presented by my self-devoted fan page on Facebook. My More Familiar vs. Power Rangers Facebook group and onwards. And today's subject, this is a subject personal of mine, but I understand if you guys don't want to hear me talk about my, something of what I originally did personally, I suggest you guys might as well have to tune out of this video. Yeah, I'm sorry for me, I have to start this video so sluggish, but it's a subject that I've already, written down according to my schedule, what podcasts for the Terra Venture podcasts that I have in store for the new for my current third year run on PR Lost Galaxy 2014. As today I want to discuss my proposed movie projects, and this past Saturday afternoon I went down the basement and I thought about jotting this down and try to share this story with you guys of what movies prior to my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Fan-Film, my current one that I released for last year. There were plenty of films that I originally wanted to be put together, but unfortunately those movies never made it. Around the time when I was never known here on YouTube or anywhere like on other social media sites like Facebook and Twitter, and when nobody knew me, I didn't know anybody, I've been trying to tell everyone what I was up to and what kind of person I was, and when knowing you guys can go ahead and call me a phony, fake-ass filmmaker, when knowing you guys never got no proof of what kind of person I was when it comes to my passion of filmmaking, because I never released because you guys in your minds think I never released a short film for any proof, or even a feature film for any proof. But at least what makes you think, for those who remember me on Anthony Marsh 1, why do you think I made a short film, the only short film I've ever released from my high school days ever exist, even though nobody watched it after it's been 4 years now? And why do you think I originally posted like those considered fake fan trailers of a Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Fan-Film, which by the way I have original transcripts of, and also past projects that I wish would have been made, and also in akin to that in between it. Around the time when I made my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Fan-Films try to be made, stammering and stuttering attacks, I suppose, I tried to make those projects work. In the back of those times when I was still not known on the internet, until 2011, a little bit, and then slowly started to get recognized as future years came. I didn't really. Well, I was a struggling filmmaker, actually a very young one, especially wanted to start making movies at a very young age. When knowing I don't have the expertise, let's say, experience like most filmmakers. Up and coming filmmakers and up and coming, actors or anything. I just never had that experience. I've always had dreams of having that experience, but that's just something that was always been in my fantasies of wanting to do. Unfortunately, I only have at least a couple of original proposed scripts for my past Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan films prior to, actually just one prior to the Rise of Shrekina and the original Rise of Shrekina project itself, and prior to the recent fan film of, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy that was set for last year in 2014. The only fan film scripts, the original scripts I only have for those proposed projects of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, well, during my fan fiction series of Power Rangers, was Power Rangers Lost Generation 3, which was a fan film of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. I originally wanted to be out in time for Lost Galaxy's 10th anniversary back in 2009. And the other, obviously being the original production script of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, The Rise of Shrekina, that I originally had set for a release in 2011. I do not have the transcripts of the following fan films that were, when I originally wanted to do, like, Galactic Underground for 2014, which would have resulted to, which would later result to the actual fan film reboot for 2014. And there was another Power Rangers fan film that I also did while in the meantime of Rise of Shrekina, being entitled The Revenge of Dark Spectre. Well, when knowing, I realized, albeit that's already the name of an existing episode in Power Rangers in Space entitled Dark Spectre's Revenge, which was a two-parter in Power Rangers in Space. So I said, well, scrap The Revenge of Dark Spectre. There's no need for me to rework that story. And knowing that, although my version of the whole Revenge of Dark Spectre was actually with the Galaxy Rangers in it and not the Space Rangers, and I think it was almost a close attempt of me doing a fan film based on Power Rangers in Space at the time. But unfortunately, I was still focused on, Lost Galaxy. I did, of course, had a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan film in the works, but I said, well, despite the fact there is far more Mighty Morphin related stuff from all the Power Ranger fans around the world, I said that's like too much Mighty Morphin-ness. What about all the other Rangers? I mean, why can't they deserve fan films? Why has it got to be Mighty Morphin? I shouldn't be jealous of the fact that Mighty Morphin gets the most popularity from Power Ranger fans, passionate fans who pick on Mighty Morphin, because to them, in their minds, it's more easier to do for fan films and such than other Power Ranger teams. Maybe it's probably because more fans rather pick Mighty Morphin because it's more easier, it's more nostalgic than other teams. I get it. I have to respect that. But sometimes I can go a little butthurt on the edge for that. But in conjunction to other Ranger teams that I wish would make fan films, like, let's say, if there was a fan film of Samurai or Zeo, that I would watch that, or RPM. But why has it got to be Mighty Morphin all the time? Well, yes, I did, of course, originally had a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan film in development, but I decided to focus on Lost Galaxy because, you know my reason why I have to brag about Lost Galaxy and my obsession with it for the last 3 years on this channel, since 2012, and when I said I was going to do a fan film based on Lost Galaxy, you guys knew I was going to say that statement like always. I even had a fan film attempt of Power Rangers Time Force in the works, back when, Samurai was airing and when I was still trying to get Rise of Shrekina off the ground after being in so many production shambles. My Time Force fan film attempt, that was too early for me to develop because, I was just too schizophrenic and too fast, quick, and, fast pacing in the head to want to do a fan film of Time Force so early, when knowing how am I going to do the film? I mean, what I was going to do, what adapted me to do my fan film reboot of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy for 2014. I wanted to do the fan film with existing Power Ranger toys, but when knowing my Power Ranger toy collection at the time and still today is very short, I don't have any toys from past Ranger teams like Mighty Morphin and Time Force and Power Rangers in Space in my collection. All I have is a few Lost Galaxy toys of the Disney era, actually only figures, no Megazords or nothing, and only toys from Super Mega Force in my collection. So I don't have much, toys of, have the same toys that I used to have from those kind of seasons, past seasons prior to, Super Mega Force in the Disney era, and even toys from the Disney era in my collection anymore. But I wish I did. If I still had them to this day still. But I had to, at the time when, like I told you back when in a video or so very long ago last year, that the reason why the reason why I don't have those toys anymore, because, well, back in the days in the past, over a decade ago, when the war in Iraq was going on, and Afghanistan and those wars, and there were kids in that country were devastated that they don't have anything to have for Christmas, and I had to sacrifice what Power Ranger toys I had in the past, and I had to donate almost every toy I had. I mean, almost every action figure. I mean, even action figures of other superheroes and stuff other than Power Rangers, like some Ninja Turtle toys and Spider-Man toys and some Batman toys to donate to the Salvation Army, and that way kids over in Iran and Afghanistan could have a good Christmas, even though what was going on in their country is just graveling and cathartic. But even although the war in Iraq is over and has been over, but just thinking about it from then, I mean, that just made me wonder, why did I donate half of my Ranger toys? I could have at least kept that stuff. Because, I mean, even though I was at a stage where I was getting tired of Power Rangers, and still in the times when we were still dwelling in the Disney era with Ninja Storm and SPD in those seasons, I was at a stage where I was getting tired of Power Rangers, and I said Disney is not doing Power Rangers as much as the way how Saban handled it in the first go. So that's why I gave those toys away. Although there were plenty of Time Force, Lightspeed Rescue, Lost Galaxy toys I had that I actually did like, and even though I still have only one of them for the first time with the inclusion of the Stratoforce Megazord in my collection for Lost Galaxy toys, I should have never gave away my Galaxy Megazord. I should have never gave away my Trans Dagger Quasar Launcher, and even remember one of those Lost Galaxy Power Ranger Power Basher, stuffed plush toys that Toy Biz used to make. Even though even Lightspeed Rescue had one of those Power Basher Power Ranger plush toys. I remember I used to have both the red and blue Galaxy. Well, I had the red one. My brother had the blue one. I remember that. And I should have never gave that away. That used to be in my basement. And I definitely should have never gave away the Galaxy Megazord. I don't know why I did. Because in case if I wanted to do a Power Rangers, well, even when I was at a time when I was so delusionally fantasizing about making movies, and even though we didn't have a working camcorder, well, I remember back in October 2002 when me and my dad and my brother were shopping at a local Best Buy, buying a video camera. Well, my dad was very curious about buying a video camera, and I said, we should have something like that in order for us to make home movies. But unfortunately, when knowing home movies, well, the thing about it, it's just his safety reasons in the house. So, and it used to. I mean, the camera used to work, but there was something. As soon as I wanted to find out why the camera wasn't working, the camcorder, this giant Canon camcorder, that was from the early 2000s. That used to require tapes. That didn't work. I mean, it used to work. I mean, it has supposed to have a working micro sort of battery and a battery plug in order for the camera to come on. Actually, the type of camcorder I had, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I had a old school late 90s, early 2000s type camcorder that these electronic outlets used to have back then. As technology evolved, with camcorders like the one I currently have, that requires flash drives and micro SD memory cards and stuff like that. Back in the day when and still where I have camcorder stores and some 2 tapes for it, and actually micro tapes. The camcorder quality from the camcorder itself, it was like a VCR, but in a camera form. And I didn't know how to work the camera and what should work with it. And it once worked back around Halloween of 2002 when me and my brother wanted to reenact the original, the first Spider-Man movie from that year. That was a childhood memory, but although the camera wasn't rolling anything, it was just trying to test out how the camera would work. I mean, I was so unfamiliar of how to work with a camcorder before until years, and then even of course years later with the camcorder I checked out from from Gettysburg High School back in the 10th grade. I wanted to know how to maneuver a camcorder, how to work it, and what kind of buttons and what are the functions of the camera. How do you record? How do you pause? How do you, and all that stuff, and how you use it daily, or once in less often a week, or a month. That's how I knew how to properly use a camera. And even to this day, I still use a camcorder, although the camcorder I use is pretty small. And, my dreams was always to make movies. You guys can badmouth me and say that I suck at making movies. And I said, how can you say that? And you have not even seen not one of my movies. You can say it looks like a homemade movie, but you can say, even though I had struggles with that back in middle school and even somewhat in high school, that people would badmouth me because of my talent of filmmaking. And I said, you guys, and I said in my mind, fuck you guys. That's what I said in my head. Before I talk about any of my proposed Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan films, and albeit though, speaking of which, I wanted to do a podcast. I wanted to release a podcast where I was talking about my proposed Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan films last year, which albeit was, I don't see why it had to be a 3-parter, but despite the recording length of the audio podcast of me discussing that, and even though people never got it simmered in their heads, even though people don't believe in fan fiction, because a lot of fans don't really believe in fan fiction, really, because they think fan fiction is something for, people who are considered faggots, or people who just fantasize about stuff that they believe should exist in the canon of the universe, like myself. You guys can go ahead and call me a faggot because I believe in fan fiction and something that's in the real world of the Power Rangers universe all you want, but that's just me. I mean, I appreciate what the show did in its main canon, but if there were some things that I wish was put in the show, but that would be like considered rewriting the show's history. Or if it's like I just already said about if I was to redo certain seasons that people probably don't like Lost Galaxy or Super Mega Force. Knowing Super Mega Force should have been remade anyway, because people continue to this day, after it's been only now a year since Super Mega Force aired, and you guys are still bitching about how much it sucks and how much the Legendary Battle sucks. But you guys need to realize that, maybe one day you'll probably think about, at least I have seen a couple of edits of how certain people did Super Mega Force. If in some videos, fan-made videos of how they would have edited Super Mega Force and handled the Gokaiger footage properly, until they were taken down by Saban and Toei, of course. But anyway, let me get back to the topic. I have to be on course of what I have to discuss. There were some fan films of other superhero properties and some video game properties I had wanted to make while in between of my Power Rangers fan film stuff. Let me start from the top. While I was still working on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, The Rise of Shrekina when it was in its original production stages, however, I originally wanted to do a couple of fan films based on a couple of superheroes that I also like other than Power Rangers. One being a Spider-Man fan film. I wanted to base a Spider-Man fan film either on the Raimi movies, just only those at the time, because we didn't have The Amazing Spider-Man until 2012. Although we heard the announcement for those back in 2010, heard the announcement that Sony was rebooting Spider-Man and Spider-Man 4 was canceled. Sam Raimi and others were let go. And at the time, I wanted to do a Spider-Man fan film, either based on the Raimi movies or any of the Spider-Man video games that came out in that era, like Spider-Man Web of Shadows and Shattered Dimensions at the time. Edge of Time didn't exist until 2011. And I thought about, what if I meshed elements of Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies with video games like not Shattered Dimensions, Web of Shadows, and probably some elements of the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon in there. And I wondered, how would that work if I was to do Spider-Man? I mean, and I would find, and thought about for fan casting. Well, I actually, knowing most of my film projects, in my mind, you guys know my obsession with Hollywood celebrities. Instead of picking real people that want to get into acting like myself, instead to play those characters. When knowing Hollywood celebrities don't want to be associated with fan films because they believe fan films are crap and garbage and myths in their minds, but I've always thought about using celebrities as those characters, even if they played characters like that on film. But if I use when I had my proposed Spider-Man fan film in development, I originally wanted, for my role of Spider-Man, was Jake Gyllenhaal. Even though Jake Gyllenhaal was originally supposed to be, if Tobey Maguire was going to return as Spider-Man, Jake Gyllenhaal would have been a substituted replacement. Because, even at the time when he was dating Kirsten Dunst, from what I heard at the time, but Gyllenhaal was let go, and Maguire was back on as Spider-Man for Spider-Man 2. And Jake Gyllenhaal, in my mind, what if he was Spider-Man? Because I know some people don't like Tobey Maguire, but I know a lot of you do. And I already told. And once when I do my future movie rant on Tobey, trust me, I will be talking about how much I hate the guy now. I mean, hate is a very strong word. Let's just say, when I do that future movie rant on the channel, I will talk about how much I despise Tobey Maguire and talk about some of the things I used to like about him, but now, ever since Spider-Man 3 and Brothers and The Great Gatsby, I don't like him. Actually, in fact, I just wanted to open up and realize why did I worship that teary-eyed ass bitch for no reason. Enough of that. But Jake Gyllenhaal, he was my choice for Peter Parker and Spider-Man because he was in his late 20s, early 30s at the time. So he could have been long before knowing about Andrew Garfield, being Spider-Man in the Amazing films, even though you guys hate the Spider-Man reboots. But, the Amazing Spider-Man films. But before Andrew Garfield even existed before Andrew Garfield even existed, into the face of Hollywood, although he was known for being in the Social Network movie prior, but as soon as I heard him being considered for Spider-Man, that's what made me thought about what if Jake Gyllenhaal was Spider-Man, or what's another good actor that most of you guys been wishing that would have been Spider-Man instead of Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. In between the Raimi and Mark Webb movies, you guys thought about Josh Henderson or Hutcherson or whatever his name was as Spider-Man. Logan Lerman as Spider-Man. Those actors. But I don't even want to imagine Zac Efron as Spider-Man and Peter Parker, because that would make no sense to me. I mean, I never really liked the High School Musical movies, even though Zac Efron's acting and his celebrity status has improved over time after the High School Musical movies have ended. So, but still, why do I even care about Zac Efron, really? I originally, in that proposed Spider-Man fan film, I wanted Bridget Regan. If you guys don't know who Bridget Regan is, she was on this show that The Legend of the Seeker that used to air on the CW, and it was such a coincidence that I didn't know it was produced by Sam Raimi, who was the director of the Spider-Man trilogy of himself. Legend of the Seeker. Bridget Regan was in that show, and I thought, what if she was Mary Jane, or I think she was my contender for Mary Jane, because if Bridget Regan has red hair and still does, maybe she should have been Mary Jane. And if I was to characterize her, if Bridget Regan in my mind was Mary Jane, to be a more strong-willed, mature character, which would be the precursor to what became of Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy in the Amazing Spider-Man films. That's how I would have done Mary Jane if Bridget Regan was playing her. And for Harry Osborn, I couldn't decide who to play him. I originally wanted, believe it or not, okay, go ahead and hate me for this casting consideration for Harry Osborn when I did this. original proposed fan film of Spider-Man, Robert Pattinson of the Twilight franchise as Harry Osborn. Excuse me. And yeah, when I did that, it didn't make no sense. Having Harry Osborn played by Robert Pattinson, who at the time was playing what's his name, Edward, that teen vampire in Twilight. And as much as I hate Twilight and why the Twilight movies suck, and still do. Because I thought the female audience would if they were watching and this video and heard me say Robert, as soon as I said Robert Pattinson, some of the girls will come up and say, "Oh my God, you got Robert Pattinson as whoever in your Spider-Man movie. That's great." But no. I said no because then it will be too Twilight-ish, and that's why I had to remove them. Or I just thought about dropping Harry Osborn from my proposed Spider-Man fan film completely. For villains, I wanted a couple of villains to... Well, in my Spider-Man fan film, I had in proposal, I wanted either the Sinister Six or some other Spider-Man villain, someone popular in the Spider-Man world. Despite the fact that Spider-Man has a lot of villains, a lot of great villains, except a few villains in Spider-Man's world in the Marvel Universe I don't like, there were a few Spider-Man villains that I had in my proposed Spider-Man film. I had Venom. At least, my version of Venom, like the comic book version. My Venom, if I had him, wouldn't be like the Topher Grace Venom from Spider-Man 3, because we hated that Venom, and we know why Topher Grace sucked as Eddie Brock in Venom in that film. We get it. I had Dr. Octopus in my fan film. Well, if I was to do a Sinister Six story in that Spider-Man fan film, I had somewhat Mysterio in there. I had the Vulture in there. I had, albeit Sandman in there, as much as I did not like Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman in Spider-Man 3. I even had the Shocker in there. Let me count. Let's see. Venom, Sandman, Dr. Octopus, Vulture, Mysterio, Shocker. That's 6 villains. And the Kingpin would be the leader of the Sinister Six, like that subplot that the Kingpin did when he recruited like Dr. Octopus and Mysterio to be part of the Sinister Six in that Spider-Man cartoon that we remember from the 1990s that used to air on Fox Kids. And I remember thinking back at that episode, the episode story arc of the Fox Kids Spider-Man cartoon, when Spider-Man was about to lose his powers a little bit on and off likely, and when the Kingpin set up and recruited 6 villains that formed this diabolical evil villain team, the Sinister Six, to take down and overpower Spider-Man, that's what made me want to do that Spider-Man fan film. And also in between, I did somewhat throw in Felicia Hardy / the Black Cat in the fan film in proposal. And I couldn't decide in my mind who should be the Black Cat, and I thought Trisha Helfer, who was the voice of Black Cat, of course, in the Web of Shadows game, and I thought, well, what is she? Well, because I thought about having Black Cat in there, because I was wondering, well, I just thought about these Spider-Man movies, knowing them, that as much as the Black Cat, as much as I love her character in the Marvel Universe and in Spider-Man's world altogether, I mean, the Black Cat can appear in almost every Spider-Man cartoon and video game we know, and comic, but never a Spider-Man movie. That's one of the few female characters in Spider-Man's world that just never made it into any of these live-action movies. Maybe that's Sony's way of saying the Black Cat is too sexy for Spider-Man. That's why we rather have these movies focus on love interest in Peter Parker's life that isn't all that sexy or something like if Sony can use Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy in their Spider-Man movies, why not Felicia Hardy? She's one of the few female characters that never got adapted into the live-action movies. But unfortunately, that topic is for another day. And yes, I did, of course, had this. In my fan film attempt, I did want to. When it was in development, I didn't really film it because I was still busy doing my Power Rangers fan film. That Spider-Man and Black Cat would get together and all, and unfortunately, I didn't know how that would work. Unfortunately, that Spider-Man fan film, I couldn't decide what to call it, was scrapped. So I scrapped that proposed Spider-Man fan film. Then I had another fan film based on a a much major popular superhero, obviously, and that was Batman. I originally did a Batman fan film, which was in development, although I didn't have any actors or anybody to do it. And for my Batman fan film that I had in development stages, back in 2010, 2011, of course, I was trying to decide whether if I wanted to base my Batman fan film off the Arkham games or the Dark Knight trilogy. Because, you know, I've seen recent Batman fan films based on the Dark Knight trilogy, and I was thinking, well, I think there are too many filmmakers doing basing their Batman fan films off the Dark Knight trilogy right now. So I was thinking, what about the Arkham games? Is that an available option? Or what about any of the following Batman comics? Although I never owned a Batman comic, but a small mini graphic novel that came with a collector's edition DVD release of Batman Begins that I still have. With 3 stories compiled in a graphic novel that I, got from the Batman Begins collector's edition DVD 10 years ago, and I thought, what kind of story can I tell from those stories from the comics? Either based it on the Man Who Falls, or the Long Halloween, or what kind of Batman stories could I tell from my Batman fan film? And in that Batman, in my proposed Batman fan film, I called it the Dark Knight something. Well, before the Dark Knight Rises even existed, or knowing the Dark Knight, it was still to this day, and even to this day, one of the best superhero movies of all time, one of the best Batman movies ever. So I was thinking, what if I did a Christopher Nolan inspired Batman film, but the problem with me, if I did it in a Christopher Nolan fashion, immaturely. I mean, yes, I have watched the Dark Knight trilogy. Well, at the time when I did my proposed Batman fan film when it was in development, I just only wrote down what actors I wish would be Batman other than Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne / Batman, or Michael Caine as Alfred. I wanted to pick actors that I think would, be, akin to those actors. But I never thought about any real people. If I know anyone surrounding me that likes Batman Begins and The Dark Knight to join my Batman fan film inspired by both The Dark Knight and Batman Arkham Asylum / Arkham City at the time. So I decided to scrap that. Yes, of course, I did, had Batman automatically, but villains like the Joker and Catwoman and Bane and Ra's al Ghul a little bit, Harley Quinn and Killer Croc, that didn't work. So I scrapped that. Then came a fan film based on Transformers. I had that in development, and my attempt for a Transformers fan film was I wanted to base it off the Michael Bay movies. Yeah, I know this is very unoriginal of me, but I could have did something more original with the Transformers universe. Either I wanted to base it on the recent, at the time, War for Cybertron video game or something. And I wanted to mesh in different versions of the Transformers from all the other iterations of Transformers, other than Generation 1, of course. And I wanted to use, let's just say my Transformers fan film at the time was going to be more of a multiverse sort of Transformers movie, where different versions of where all the many versions of the Autobots and Decepticons of all the different eras of Transformers would collide together. But no, that would be too much to work. And and yes, I wanted to do my Transformers fan film with toys and stop motion, but and still to this day, I don't even know how to do stop motion as much. But how I wanted to do stop motion, I had to watch people's Transformers stop motion toy videos as a understudy. And the more months I've understudied how they did the stop motion effects of how the Autobots and Decepticons transform, which for those who have many Transformers toys from the many Transformers toy lines, like the Michael Bay movie toy lines or the animated toy lines of Transformers Prime, that's when I wanted to study how they do the effects. And, well, of course, I do have a couple of Transformers toys in my collection, but I just don't have enough, Autobots and Decepticons I could use for my Transformers fan film. I never had, and even for a long time since childhood, I never even owned an Optimus Prime or a Megatron or any other Transformer, big name Transformer, that's the most popular character. But definitely Optimus Prime, the leader of the Autobots, and Megatron, the leader of the Decepticons, in my collection. And for the human, well, I was thinking, what if I did my Transformers fan film like the Michael Bay movies, but minus the potty humor that people hate about the Bay movies in general. And that was what I was going for. And I wanted to do it. I wanted to do my Transformers fan film, based on Generation 1 with the mixture of the soon-to-be come out Transformers Prime TV show that aired on the Hub. And, well, yes, I did watch Transformers Prime. I think it was a very good show, and I thought Transformers Prime is better than Transformers Animated, in my opinion. And, by the way, I hate Transformers Animated. I hated its 3-year run on Cartoon Network, and I said, well, I would like to see how Hasbro can go back to its dark roots, reinvigorate the Transformers franchise. And that's what became a Transformers Prime on the Hub. So I canceled the Transformers fan film. I couldn't decide what to do with the Autobots and Decepticon. I never came up with a story, but just announced it on a entertainment wiki. Actually, these fan films of the following franchises: Batman, Spider-Man, and Transformers. I just brought those up on entertainment wikis. The Spider-Man wiki, the Batman wiki, and the Transformers wiki. Actually, the Teletran 1 wiki. And you can tell that for those that didn't know me at the time a little bit on those wikis, I did, of course, post blogs about how I would have done those movies, because I really have been passionate about making movies for a long time. So, I also wanted to do a fan film based on one of my few favorite video game franchises. I'd rather go with 3. I don't want to do a whole bunch of fan films of other video games, even though I haven't played certain video game franchises. 1, I originally wanted to do a fan film based on Sonic the Hedgehog, but unfortunately Blue Core Studios' fan film is good enough to watch. So what's the point of me doing a fan film of Sonic the Hedgehog? I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog has always been one of my favorite video game characters. And I said, well, as much as I love Sonic and his entire mythology within his universe, and appreciate half of the thing, appreciate all the things it happened in each game, like, any Sonic the Hedgehog game, when he has to deal with the evil threats of Dr. Eggman and collecting Chaos Emeralds and stuff and beating the final boss of the games, how would that translate in a fan film form? I decided I had no clue. I had no clue how. So I decided scrap my Sonic the Hedgehog fan film. It wasn't going anywhere. Then came my fan film attempt of Halo. The Xbox game franchise Halo. That everybody has for Xbox. Anyone who has Xbox 360, Xbox One. I wanted to do a fan film based on Halo. And, of course, I currently have Xbox, and the original Xbox, not the Xbox One or Xbox 360, and I only have Halo 1 and Halo 2 for the original Xbox in my video game collection. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do, like, a fan film type machinima of a Halo fan film in that form, using multiplayer footage of people playing Halo and doing a commentary or so, using gameplay footage of Halo in a fan film form, but that would be considered too cheap and too piss poor type budgetary. So I said, scrap Halo, my Halo fan film. Then I wanted to do a video game. I wanted to do a video game based fan film based on one of my top favorite video game franchises ever, Soul Calibur. I tried to come up with a title for my Soul Calibur fan film. And, well, when I thought about casting, again, with celebrities and not real people, I tried to decide who should play Mizurugi. Now when I wanted to do my Soul Calibur fan film, I wanted it to be faithful to the franchise's roots in terms of character casting, and what characters are Asian, which character is Mid-Eastern, which character is British, which character is, well, whatever. And I have to pick the right actor at the right time to play that character if I was to do a Soul Calibur fan film. and not to be confused to make it look like a big budget major motion picture fan film attempt. I did pick a couple of celebrities in my mind that I wish would have been those characters, like Nightmare, Sophitia, Taki, Astaroth, and definitely one of my top favorite female characters in the games, Ivy. You know, the big boobed wonder with that, you know, snake vine kind of sword. White hair, tall, 6 foot tall, yeah. And I tried to come up with a story for my Soul Calibur fan film. So I said, you know what? Since I can't come up with a story, but I can come up with actors that I can fit for those characters, I said, well, fuck my Soul Calibur fan film. Scrap that too. So I was left in the blue and see what other movies that are not fan films that I wish would work. Oh, wait a minute. I also wanted to do a fan film based on G.I. Joe at the time in its development stages. G.I. Joe: The Pursuit of Cobra, which is also the same name as the 2010 Hasbro toy line of the G.I. Joe franchise, which I thought benefited for a spin-off toy line to the Rise of Cobra movie, which albeit is the worst G.I. Joe movie ever. And I wanted to do a G.I. Joe fan film comprising of toys, using toys from the Rise of Cobra movie with some existing toys from the Pursuit of Cobra toy line and some toys from the Resolute toy line. Mostly vehicles. Not Resolute. Resolute and Renegades as well, but it didn't work out. It didn't work out at all. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that G.I. Joe fan film. If it's going to be a toy, if it's going to be a G.I. Joe fan film with toys, like my Transformers fan film, it has to be either in stop motion or some other effects, but I couldn't decide. I couldn't decide at all. So I said, you know what? Scrap my G.I. Joe fan film too. That's going in the trash. However, my brother Austin had excuse me. My throat is clogged up. A suggestion of a G.I. Joe fan film in a certain title, and he called it G.I. Joe Purple Haze. I said G.I. Joe Purple Haze. Didn't you just rip that title off that remember that? And also, remember that Viet Cong Purple Haze game that used to be released for the Xbox and PlayStation 2? He thought about that title for, using the word Purple Haze for a G.I. Joe fan film. And in that fan film attempt of G.I. Joe, it was going to be like, the G.I. Joes are like in the 1960s Vietnam. And it's like Snake Eyes was the leader of, well, if the G.I. Joe characters we know to this point 30 years ago and later, like Duke and Cobra Commander, were set in the 60s, and Storm Shadow and his Arashikaki clan foot soldiers were Vietnamese. And, how it would have played out would be like, if the G.I. Joe and Cobra members were based in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War. And I thought instead of having Cobra Commander leading Cobra in that somewhat Vietnam War reenactment of G.I. Joe, a real American hero, it could have been Storm Shadow. Because, well, Storm Shadow's Asian and Snake Eyes is Asian, so why not Storm Shadow? Or any one of the Arashikaki clan. Or I could have at least, and also used a couple of G.I. Joe's, G.I. Joe characters in their camouflage camo uniforms, like Duke and Ripcord and Roadblock, and, their camo, army camo uniforms for, to fit that Vietnam War reenactment setting, when knowing that's setting far behind from what became of G.I. Joe the 80s and beyond. Because if I was going to do that, that would have been like the G.I. Joe toy line that existed since 1964 all the way to 1976. I was about to say 66, sorry. I said, Austin, that is not going to work. I mean, and then also, you playing Viet Cong Purple Haze, that stupid game, that stupid Vietnam war-based game that we got for PS2 sucks, and it just won't mesh with, of course G.I. Joe, the original G.I. Joe toy line existed in the 60s until 1976 and all, but why do you want to use elements of the Vietnam War, and that was like 50 some years ago, and you're going to mesh it with G.I. Joe characters? That won't make no sense. So I said, scrap G.I. Joe Purple Haze. Ugh, man. Aside from that, I had some films, personal films that I wish would have been made. There were two films that were not fan films though, but there were two originally made films that I originally wanted to make. When I started taking video production classes, when I started taking video production in high school, or when I wanted to take it, well, back in the junior year, but I had decided senior year, but knowing. When I took video production, I only was told to make videos for the class and not for myself personally. That's what I thought. I thought in video production class, I thought we were going to make movies that I wanted to make and what the class wanted to make, but no, we have to do it by what the teacher wants us to do, and that's what that was about. So I said, okay. Well, it took me hard. Well, as soon as I started this filmmaking process, I knew it was going to be hard for me to do, and I thought making movies was all about I thought making movies was about having fun and enjoying ourselves, having a good time making them, and knowing how to doing all of that and whatever else. But I realized later on, it's all about hard work. So it has to you have to take some time to, knowing if you're going to do movies for the class, they have to be less than like 5 minutes or so. Because if the teacher sees you make, like, let's say a 10-minute movie, you're going to be disqualified and you're not going to have a grade on it. You're going to be like, you got to like cut out some stuff. And I've been like, actually my video production teacher, I hate to speak his name out, but he was a jerk to me. A total jerk. And I didn't like him. I didn't like his attitude toward me about making movies. So I said, well, in my mind, I'm not going to say. I did had 2 movies that I originally wanted to make, and in between when I was in production work, or before I was about to make Power Rangers, Lost Galaxy, The Rise of Shurikina, I wanted 2 films that I originally had written down in transcript, Microsoft Word transcript, and thought about how that movie would have worked. One movie was Gothland. I know that's a very generic film title, but Gothland, it was going to be like my version of Zombieland, but more like a twist of, like, let's say The Evil Dead and A Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween in an amusement park sort of setting. And I said, how is that going to work? Although I've never been a fan of horror movies until recently, after watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street and its, god-awful somewhat sequels, and even that god-awful 2010 remake, that's what possessed me to want to do horror movies. Even after watching the Evil Dead trilogy, plus Army of Darkness, that's what made me wanted to do a horror movie at first. I didn't know how to do it. I don't know what kind of ways to do this horror movie, how to, like, what kind of stuff can I use to make blood out of for a film? Corn syrup and ketchup mixed together for blood? That's kind of gross. And the zombie makeup. How you're going to do the zombie makeup? That's not. I don't know how to do that. In my mind, now this project was also where I was going to include myself, but with likenesses. Well, for puppets, of course, with celebrity faces. Originally in my mind, I wanted it to be, for those following characters in Gothland, although that project never made it in existence and it was just in development stages in my mind, that I wanted in my mind to include Seth Green's likeness for one character and Dave Chappelle's likeness for one character. And for the female character in that film, believe it or not, would be Shannon Sproul, aka Daphne of TNA WCW fame, to be my film. Because I was thinking about, Daphne... Daphne Unger, is all, gothy, I hate to, I don't mean to insult Daphne, but I'm sorry, but I have not been thinking about her anymore. Well, it's just ever since her exit from TNA 4 years ago, back in March, I don't really care for Daphne anymore. Why should I? She has fans, but do people care about her? Yes, but I'm not going to talk about her anymore. However, Gothland was scrapped. Then there was a film I wanted to do based on a way been canceled TV show that I wanted to watch from back then, back in the 2000s, mid 2000s, which I was very upset to hear that it was canceled at the time. Remember that ABC situation comedy, Big Day, that wedding comedy with Marla Sokoloff, Wendy Malick, Stephanie Weir, Kurt Fuller in that show? I wanted to do a film. I wanted to do a film remake of that show. And if I did a film version of that, I would have Ryan Reynolds, Jenna Dewan, and a couple of other actors to be in that film project. In my mind, not having them in the movie with me for real, because I never met these actors like Ryan Reynolds or Jenna Dewan or Dave Chappelle and those people back. I mean, even to this day, I've never met not one celebrity, not one. Do you think I've ever took a plane to Hollywood to meet a celebrity? No. Celebrities don't care about people who just pop out from the crowd of the red carpet and stuff. No. I have never even stood one step of a celebrity. I've only stayed right here where I live at. That's it. And then anyway, Big Day was canceled. That was another project I had to shut down. And then came these Power Rangers, those Galaxy fan films of mine. I mean, Rise of Trakeena, Lost Generation 3, Galactic Underground, Revenge of Dark Spectre. I mean, those projects just never worked. But most prominently, I do have transcripts, original transcripts for Lost Generation 3, but boy, there are two different versions of them in full. And, like, you know, one being the transcript of the film's plots and other information that I copied and pasted illegally from Wikipedia. I should have trashed these original transcripts by now, but I should have just threw them away when I had the chance. I mean, the Lost Generations 3 script, this was all 2009. And, you know, I thought, how was I going to do Lost Generation 3? Well, I already told you in my, you know, proposed Power Rangers, Los Galaxy Fan-Film, you know, attempts podcast, although I have not released it in a long time now. You know, I should have posted it last year. But the transcript for Lost Generation 3, well, the story was convoluted. It was all copy and paste of moments that I liked it from existing older Power Ranger episodes, like what happened in Ninja Quest of Mighty Morphin Season 3, and what happened during the second half of Lost Galaxy. Well, Lost Generation 3 at the time, well, when Power Rangers Lost Galaxy had its 10th anniversary, when RPM was airing, Lost Generation 3, believe it or not, it was a fan film attempt of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy where I wanted Trakeena to be in my fan films, and that's where I got started with my obsession with Trakeena. But I slowly wanted to revive her character for a fan film of Power Rangers or of Lost Galaxy in general. And in terms of my fan fiction canon and my fan fiction universe, and not, you know, basing the fan film off the actual canon. And Lost Generation 3 was complicated to be made, and I thought, well, how is that going to do? I mean, well, this was at the time I was still trying to I wanted to make a movie with a working camera. So the only way how I went to Gettysburg High School's Media Center back in 2009, well, in the spring of 2009, likewise, when I was doing mainstream lunching and stuff, and I went to the media center to see where they got camcorders and stuff, and I thought, well, I only wanted to pick out the camcorder and tapes for it. And well, at the time, I didn't want to tell everyone. Well, as soon as I checked out a camera and got a couple of tapes, I didn't want anyone in my respective facility of the school at the time to know I checked it out a camera and took some tapes. Until they knew later on when the new school season started in September. And as soon as when What's-Their-Faces knew that I they said I stole 50 tapes for the camera that I took and stole. And also and knowing the amount of monetary damages I did to that camera, yeah, that was a very gruesome story. I'll probably repeat that story when I post a podcast about how much I hate Gettysburg High School, and I don't mean to say that in regards to the school's name in vain, but that's probably the name of my future podcasts later on this season on this channel when I have the leisure moment from time to time. Then after my god awful suffering and graveling junior year ended, my senior year came in an approach, and I started to take video production, got one of the cameras from the school, and that's when I started Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Rise of Trakeena, but the original production. But I'll talk about the, in comparison of the original production of what I'm going to do with Rise of Trakeena now for my new fan film series later on in a future podcast. There were a few, now to close this up, I don't want to go all day talking about proposed movies and, you know, talk all of that junk. There was a few short films that I did in high school that I did put on DVD and rendered and edited and all that stuff for the class. But before I even opened a YouTube account, before I opened an account with YouTube under my name Anthony Marsh 1, with knowing my dad is number 1 and I'm a number 2, so my dad's a senior, I'm a junior, and before I even opened a YouTube account, and when I did, I only released only one of my short films I did with the class, and that was Beauty and the Brawler. But when Beauty and the Brawler was screened in the class, I had a negative reception. I wasn't sure if my video production teacher liked it. I wasn't sure if any of the other students, even for those that I worked with on the film, liked it. But as soon as I posted it on YouTube, yes, I did have a very disgusting negative comment. It was just only one small negative comment regarding the female lead in my short film. Although it didn't felt like a movie. I understand what I was doing when I was making the video and all, but it didn't even feel like a movie or a short movie. It was just something of us goofing around about. I mean, if I ever fell in love with a girl. Now, I'll probably give you the link to the short film later on after this video is over, somewhere in the comments section, and I'll let you know, and let me know what you guys think of the short film, because I know it's only been 4 years since I posted that short film of mine on YouTube, and not one person ever liked it or even commented about my performance or direction and writing. Although, however, in that short film, I didn't even come up with character names. But yet, when I did a PSA video with Ben Rockwood and J-Rob, big money I would like to do. Hey J-Rob, hey Ben. And when I did a video on, that PSA video with them 4 years ago, we had names. I was Nook Nook and he was, J-Rob was whatever. And, well, yeah. And after Beauty and the Brawler and that small PSA video that was barely unfinished, well in render, I didn't do no short films since. And even following my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film of nowadays, 2014 onwards, I have not done another short film since. I'll probably do another short film in the future, but I don't know how would that turn out. So all of this stuff that you've been hearing about, me discussing what films before and prior to my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film of nowadays, from 2014, now you know what kind of filmmaker I was. Even though you guys can call me a delusional nut job of a filmmaker who has no proof, knowing that you guys have no proof that I've ever did movies. But you guys refuse to believe it. Now you know. Even you guys can go ahead and spout out negative comments and say that you suck as a filmmaker, boo, and all that, all you want, but that's the truth. I'll talk more about this in the comment section with you guys while following your comments in this video. What do you guys think of tonight's topic about my proposed film projects prior to my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film for 2014, and as even in conjunction to fan films of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy I wanted to make? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and I'm off for tonight and somewhat because I need to take another hiatus. So this is Anthony Marsh Jr. on PR at Lost Galaxy 2014. Be sure to subscribe, comment, drop a like, and such whats. And I'll see you guys right back here next time. And my discussion here on Terra Ventures Conference Hall is now over. Thank you, and good night.